Greetings, my dear viewer. You're on the channel The Price of Cheating. The channel is for those who appreciate traditional family values and condemn adultery. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. It has been 7 years since our youngest child left for college, marking the end of our parenting journey. For so long, our lives revolved around raising 3 wonderful children. Now that they've all grown up and become independent, I thought this would be the start of a new chapter for us. I hoped that we would finally have time to focus on ourselves, but it seemed that the only thing truly holding us together was raising our children. We had always emphasized values like honesty, hard work, and self-sufficiency. These principles shaped our children, and they learned to stand on their own. Each of them chose stable, practical careers and quickly found well-paying jobs. Their father had wisely ensured that they wouldn't be burdened with student loans through careful financial planning. For 35 years, our marriage remained strong, based on our shared goal of raising our kids. But now that this mission was accomplished, it felt like Samantha and I were slowly drifting apart. Over the past 2 decades, she had become deeply involved in her job, a role in which she not only excelled, but also loved. I never fully understood the nuances of her work, and didn't take much interest in it. She was comfortable at work, and that was enough for me. Our mortgage was fully paid off, and we had enough savings to comfortably support the 2 kids who were still in college. Around 25 years ago, I started a land surveying business with 2 childhood friends, Oliver and Jack Brown. The idea was mine, and they eagerly joined to help make it a reality. However, a few weeks ago, something happened that threw me off course. I usually got home from work before Samantha and spent a few minutes sorting through the mail. One particular day, a letter from the Department of Health caught my attention. It was addressed to Samantha Murphy. Curious, I set aside the rest of the mail on the dresser, but kept this letter with me as I went to the kitchen to start dinner. Samantha usually arrived home an hour after me, giving me plenty of time to prepare everything. That evening, I was making lasagna. When she walked in, she warmly greeted me with, "I'm home, Charlie," and seemed genuinely excited about dinner. She mentioned that she couldn't wait to have lasagna with a glass of red wine. She kicked off her shoes, walked into the kitchen, kissed me on the cheek, and sat down. The letter I had placed on the table was right in front of her. Picking it up, she frowned and asked, "What's this?" She held up the envelope as I placed the lasagna dish in front of her. "I was hoping you could tell me," I replied, taking my seat and pouring 2 glasses of inexpensive red wine, our usual choice for no special occasion. "It came in the mail today." Though I was ready to start eating, Samantha opened the letter first. As she read it, her face darkened, and she muttered a curse, something she rarely did. "Is something wrong?" I asked cautiously, sensing the tension in the air. "Someone used my name to get tested for an STD," she said angrily. "I've been ordered to take a test by the end of the week." I blinked, stunned by what she had just said. "Do you have any idea who might have done this?" I asked, genuinely puzzled. "Don't be ridiculous, Charlie." "Of course I don't," she snapped, clearly irritated. Trying to defuse the situation, I asked, "Well, if you had to guess, who would be the most likely culprit?" Her anger flared. "This is no joke, Charlie. I have no idea how to figure out who did this. There's no name, just a demand to take the test. It's absolutely absurd." Sensing her anxiety, I suggested, "Let me take a look at the letter. Maybe there's some kind of reference number or clue we can use to trace this." She handed me the letter, but her worry was evident. "I hate this situation. I don't like that this is happening, and I'm not thrilled about you getting involved in investigating it. It just feels wrong. But if you think it'll help, go ahead." "I'll look into it tonight," I reassured her. "I doubt I'll get very far, but at least I'll try. You can handle it tomorrow if needed." Still uneasy, she wasn't entirely convinced. Half-jokingly, I said, "Why didn't I get a letter too?" Samantha didn't appreciate the joke. "You're being a smartass, and I'm not in the mood." She pushed her plate away, having lost her appetite. I realized I needed help. Grabbing my phone, I decided to call Jack. His wife worked at a hospital, and I thought she might be able to provide some insight. "Jack, it's Charlie. I need a favor," I said when he picked up. "Sure, what's going on?" he replied. "Today, Samantha got a letter from the Department of Health. It was about an STD. I have a case number from the report. Is there any way for Sarah to track who submitted it? I know it's supposed to remain confidential, but something's not right here. If Sarah doesn't have access to that information, maybe one of her friends does. Send me everything you've got, and I'll take care of the next steps. It might take a day or two to get something substantial. It was easiest to send him the report via email. Fridays were usually reserved for our Chinese takeout night. I had everything ready, setting the table and brewing tea while Samantha went to pick up the food on her way home. She came in smiling and handed me a medical certificate from the clinic. "Do you know a guy named Kyle Tremblay?" I asked, watching her reaction closely. The question clearly unsettled her. "Yeah, of course. He's the guy I fired 5 years ago for harassment." "You remember? I told you all about it back then. I thought he'd left town for good," she said in an even voice, though I sensed something underneath. "Well, he's back. He's living nearby now. Have you seen him recently?" Annoyance flared in her eyes. "Enough, Charlie. No, I haven't seen him, and I haven't had any contact with him since. I've always been honest with you." "Right, now I remember," I replied, pretending to recall. "He kept pursuing you, so you filed a report and he got fired. He wasn't happy about it, was he?" "No, he wasn't," she admitted. "He threatened me when they escorted him out, swore he'd get revenge. But years have passed, and I thought it was all behind us. I promise, Charlie, there was nothing between us." She sounded sincere, but still, something felt off. It was obvious the situation was weighing on Samantha. She wasn't herself. She'd become more distant, less vibrant. Something had changed. With that nagging feeling, I decided to head to Kyle's apartment, determined to stay calm and keep my emotions in check. I needed clarity, and I was going to get it. When I finally saw him, he looked slimmer than I remembered, even smaller. There was something about him that seemed even more unpleasant than before. "My name's Charlie Murphy. You know who I am?" I asked, fixing my gaze on him. He straightened slightly and met my eyes. "Yeah, I know who you are," he said, a little more relaxed than I expected. "I think I know why you're here. Want to come inside?" His calm response threw me off. His apartment looked like a secondhand store's clearance section, but surprisingly tidy. "Take a seat. Want a beer?" he offered. I reluctantly nodded. He handed me a bottle, and I took a sip, not really enjoying it. "So, how do you want to talk about this? I think you know most of the story, but I'm curious. Why did you mention my wife's name at the clinic? You didn't sleep with her, did you?" I asked, studying his face. He smirked slightly, taking a sip of his beer before responding. "No, I didn't. Believe me, I tried, but it didn't happen." "So why did you even bring her up?" I pressed. He leaned back, sighing. "Look, you know the story. I was angry at your wife back then. It wasn't about revenge or anything like that. I just couldn't control myself. I got an STD, had to go to the clinic, and when I was filling out the forms, I guess I couldn't hold back my feelings. I added her name to the list just for fun, nothing more." "That's all?" "Yes, really. I can't believe you two are still together. I thought you'd have sorted this out by now." "Sorted out what?" He finished the last sip of his beer and glanced at my empty glass. "Want another one?" I gave a slight nod but politely declined. He took my glass, refilled his own, and turned back to me. "Mr. Murphy, I didn't just flirt with your wife, I blackmailed her. I'm not exactly charming or attractive enough to win over a woman like her purely on charm, so I needed some leverage. After some thought, I decided to intimidate her. I warned her that I'd expose her affairs if she didn't agree to meet me. But she wasn't scared, and before I could carry out my plan, she disappeared. I ended up in the hospital, and after I got out, I headed to Texas." "Wait, what?" I interrupted, completely bewildered. "Hold on, I'm totally lost. What were you expecting me to understand?" I blinked in surprise. "Wait, you didn't know your wife was cheating on you?" His confusion mirrored mine, but before I could respond, he added, "Yeah, I think I'll take that second beer after all." I spent another 2 hours with Kyle, and eventually, the whole story came out. My wife had been involved with 2 other men, Michael Lee and Alexander Smith, both mid-level employees at her company. They'd meet in a hotel room. As far as Kyle knew, The three of them never met all at once. He didn't know if these affairs were still going on. Kyle, on the other hand, had been attacked by two men after being laid off. They beat him so badly that he couldn't move for a while. He spent 2 days in the hospital, and after being discharged, he packed up and moved away. By that time, I owned half the business, and Oliver and Jack controlled the other 50%. I eventually sold them my share for a symbolic $1. In return, they agreed to pay me $5,000 a month as a consultant. All I had to do was create a cover for a blind manufacturing facility. It worked out well for them, and for me too. Meanwhile, Michael Lee and Alexander Smith continued working at the company. As my divorce proceeded, I also filed a lawsuit against the company. I left Samantha a signed document finalizing everything, emptied our accounts, cleared out the safe, and transferred everything to her name. 3 days later, I hit the road. Within a week, I bought an old trailer in a run-down mobile home park. Soon after, I bought a new car, got a fresh driver's license, and a new phone number. By the end of the month, I had a stable job. I even opened a new bank account. Life became pretty simple. No, I didn't buy a toaster. The checks from Oliver and Jack were deposited directly into my new account. I waited 2 months before reaching out to my lawyer. "Wilson, it's Charlie Murphy." "Charlie, good to hear from you," Wilson said. "You left behind quite the complicated situation, but things are settling down. How are you?" "Couldn't be better," I replied. "I've moved. I've got a trailer with air conditioning, a fridge full of beer, and a lot of books. Life is good." That last part even made me smile. "Well, looks like you've got it all figured out," Wilson said with a laugh of his own. "Let me tell you what happened. The beginning wasn't easy. As expected, Samantha hired a lawyer. She was ready to dispute everything, but since you sold her the house for $400,000 and only took $40,000 in cash, her lawyer advised her to accept the terms and move on. That was exactly what I was hoping for." "How much longer do I have to wait?" "I didn't know you were in such a hurry." "I'm not rushing. I just want to wrap everything up quickly." "All right, let me check. You'll officially be free in 20 days. Can you wait until then?" "I think I can. I'll send you my new contact details. Email, phone, and address. Do you need anything else?" "Actually, yes. There are a few documents that need your signature. The company wants a settlement agreement, but they require a notarized waiver. They're offering $500,000. Does that work for you?" "Are you serious? I wasn't expecting to get anything. I just wanted to make a bit of noise. I assume you'll get your cut?" "Oh, of course, Charlie. I'll take my 30% commission off the top." I was struck by the fact that Samantha didn't even try to find me. I also hadn't heard a word from the kids or any other relatives. On the other hand, I hadn't contacted them either. It was unclear whether they didn't care or if I'd managed to disappear pretty well. I figured none of them cared. Whatever Samantha had told them, she must have come up with some explanation. But that was something to worry about later. Life had been fairly calm for the past 2 months. The job required the whole crew, and we even had a police officer stationed at one end. It was tedious work, and I wasn't as focused as I should have been. The cars were coming from the east when a silver car stopped right in front of me. I gestured for the driver to keep moving, but instead, the window rolled down. "You're easy to find, Charlie," a voice shouted. "You really should have considered changing your name." My first thought was, why the hell is Michael Lee looking for me? This definitely wasn't good. I backed away from the car as soon as his right hand appeared with a terrible black revolver. Instinctively, I threw my traffic flag into his window and bolted toward the castor bean field on the other side of the road. The revolver let out a deafening sound. I didn't know where the first shot went, but when he got out of the car, his aim improved significantly. The second shot hit me in the back, but there was no pain as I expected, more like a burning sensation. The third shot missed. He was now on foot, chasing me and shooting, but his coordination was off. By the time I reached the thick brush, I saw him trying to reload when I looked back. What should I do now? The next shot didn't come from him. It was quieter, sharper. Lee dropped his weapon and grabbed his leg, collapsing to the ground. Officer Isabella Garcia, our stationed cop, had stepped in just in time. She kicked his revolver away and stood over him, talking into the radio on her shoulder. I figured I was safe now and slowly walked toward them. "You okay?" she asked, not taking her eyes off Lee. "I think so. Not sure," I replied, still trying to process what had just happened. I stayed aside as she began reading him his rights. Lee wasn't listening to a word she said. It seemed her knee had hit him, and he was far more concerned with that. She kept speaking into her radio, and 5 minutes later, more police and an ambulance arrived. They had to make their way to where we were, but they got there fairly quickly. The paramedic looked at me and couldn't suppress a laugh. He pointed at Isabella, and soon we both got the details of the incident. Continuing to explain to Isabella and me, he added, "He's got about 6 pellets lodged in his hands and back." He quickly reassured us, saying there was no need to panic. All the pellets could be easily removed at the emergency room, and I would likely go home right after. It was just a minor outpatient procedure. "Can I just take him to the ER in my patrol car?" she asked, clearly impatient. "I really don't want us both crammed into the ambulance," she added. Soon, we found ourselves in her patrol car, properly introducing ourselves. It seemed she was running on an adrenaline rush after the incident, using our short trip as an opportunity to escape her duties. It felt like she was trying to avoid facing her superiors. "Are you okay? You look a bit tense," I noted, noticing her nervous glances in the rearview mirror. "I think I made a mistake," she admitted. "I shouldn't have shot that guy." "What other choice did you have? He was shooting at you," I pointed out. She sighed. "Maybe I could have resolved it without using force." "You've got to be kidding," I replied, but she just shrugged. A brief silence enveloped us, but it didn't last long. "By the way, that knee strike was really impressive," I said, trying to lighten the mood. She chuckled quietly. "Actually, it was a body strike, not a knee strike." "Oh," I said, and we both laughed as we neared the hospital. In the emergency room, the removal of 8 pellets from my back seemed to make the day for the medical staff. They traded jokes, each trying to outdo the other with humor. In the end, they even handed me a small trophy bag with the extracted pellets. Isabella stayed nearby, adding a couple of jokes herself. When the doctors finished their work, my boss came by to tell me I should take a week off to recover. At the same time, Isabella's boss called her, reprimanding her for leaving the scene of the incident. She was suspended until the investigation into the shooting was completed. "Hey, Murphy, what do you want to do this week?" Isabella asked with a playful smile. I smiled back at her. Noticing my concern, she offered to take me home. One thing led to another, and in the end, she stayed with me for 2 days. During that time, Michael Lee, a man I had met before, was furious with me. He had lost both his job and his wife, while Alexander Smith had disappeared without a trace. Details emerged when they interrogated Lee, but he never mentioned my wife. No one could explain how he found me. A year passed, and Isabella and I were living together in a cozy apartment. We hadn't gotten married, there was no pressure for that. We were content with what we had. Having gone through failed marriages, both Isabella and I were cautious when it came to serious relationships. She continued her work on patrol, and I remained a flag officer. We weren't looking for anything more. Our compatibility was evident, both in our relationship and in bed. What more could a man want? As Christmas approached, I realized it was time to reconnect with my children. So much time had passed, and they told me that after the divorce their mother had fallen into despair. One day she drank too much and drove home, but she never made it. A horrific car accident took her life. I didn't even have to take revenge on her. Fate had taken care of that for me. This concludes the story. If you like it, then put your powerful like and subscribe to the channel.